All righty, thanks for participating. The library likes to get some general biography. Could you tell us your name?
Marvin Virgil Chamberlin.
All right, and when were you born?
November 25th, 1936.
Good, so how old are you? What would that make you?
87.
All right, and where do you live?
3941 Woods Ridge Road, Portsmouth.
Where did you live before that?
Over on Great Meadow Road at South Webster.
Was that your only address in Sauter County?
No, I've lived on Langaslocum Road when I grew up. And then we moved up on 140 there at Slocum
Right.
after I got out of the Navy. And then when Mary Lou and I got married, we lived on Rose Street in Saudaville for about a year.
Where were you born?
Slocum.
Right. Was there a hospital there? Or?
Nope, I was born at home.
All right. So let's hear about your family tree. What are your parents' names?
My dad was Virgil Chamberlin. Most people knew him as Coogee. And my mom was Margaret Weimer. They were married 1935 on Christmas Eve.
Oh. Where are they from?
Here in Sauter County.
You know where from in Sauter County?
My dad lived back at the end of Chamberlin Road. And my mom, she grew up over around Rubyville.
Do you know how they met?
Yeah, at a party at Lou Teakin's house.
So how far back in your family tree can you go? Do you know the names of your grandparents on your father's side?
It was Anson and Annie Chamberlin. And on my mother's side, it was Jessie and Rosa Weimer.
Mm-hmm. You know your grandma's maiden names?
My grandma Chamberlain's maiden name was Warner. Her parents came over from Bavaria.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
And my mom's mother's maiden name was Cox. Some of those from out around Otway. And my grandfather, he was the only one named Weimer because his father died when he was very young and his mother remarried. And I guess when they was a teenager, they wanted to move west and he didn't want to go, so they moved off and left him.
Do you know anything about your great-grandparents?
I knew my great-grandparents on my dad's side. His grandparents came from Bavaria. It was Johann and Manny Warner, and on my dad's great-grandparent, his grandparents, I knew that my great-granddad's name was Anson. No, Wyatt.
Okay. What did your parents do? What were their jobs?
My mom was a homemaker. My dad was a construction boiler maker.
Right. And your grandparents, what were their jobs?
I knew my granddad Weimer worked at the boiler house in the mill, and And he told me one time he worked as installing the first electric lights, street lights in Portsmouth.
Cool. Do you know what your great-grandparents in Bavaria did?
No,
Do you know when they came to America?
no,
Or the reason?
no.
Right. Do you have any siblings?
I have one brother and two sisters. One sister died, Roberta Lang. She worked at the hospital.
When did she die?
Can't remember about how many years ago. 10 years or so more. And my brother's still alive, and my youngest sister, my brother's Robert. He was a twin to Roberta,
Okay.
and my youngest sister is Marilyn Madsen.
Okay.
She lives at Grove City, and her husband was a retired school teacher.
All right. Good. Are you married?
Yes,
What's your wife's name?
Mary Lou
What's her maiden name?
Van Horn.
Where'd you guys meet?
We were introduced by a friend.
Matchmaking.
Yeah.
Was it love at first sight?
No, I wouldn't say that, but we worked it out.
Do you have any children?
Got one,
What's
Todd.
his name?
Todd Andrew.
Tell us about Todd.
Well, we adopted him when he was 7 weeks old. He came with a bottle of tranquilizers.
When was he born? What year?
1974, 1974, August 30th.
All right. Let's talk about school days. Where did you go to high school?
East.
Right.
And graduated 1954.
When you were in high school, did you have any part-time jobs?
No, I worked on farms and stuff, things like that.
Right.
Almost everybody did then.
Right. Did you play any sports?
Went out for football 1 year, but I ended up with appendicitis before the second game, and that was it.
Mm-hmm. And then what did you do after high school?
I worked in a grocery store at Slocum for George Lance.
Right. How long did you work there?
About a year and a half.
Okay.
I was only 17 when I graduated.
Okay. When did you enlist in the military?
1956, March. Last of March.
Right.
Were you drafted or did you enlist?
I enlisted.
Where did you enlist?
Portsmouth.
Right. What do you remember about that day that you enlisted?
Not much.
Well, did you have an interview?
Well, we had one, and I was promised to get a chance to go for electronics school, so I jumped on it.
In the Navy. And how did you tell your family and friends you were joining the Navy?
Just I was going to join.
What did they think about that?
All right.
Yeah. Why did you join the Navy?
I think most of the guys that I grew up with was either volunteering or watching out for the draft, and I chose the Navy.
Right. Why did you choose that over other branches?
My dad's cousin, back during World War II, came in for on leave, and I was kind of impressed with him. He spent 20 years in the Navy.
How did you imagine military life before you joined?
Going to see different things.
Did your perception change after serving?
No, I saw lots of stuff, mostly out ocean.
Yeah. What was basic training like?
Regular stuff, a lot of marching, a lot of washing clothes, and
Where did you go to basic training?
Great Lakes, Illinois.
Right. Do you remember a funny moment from boot camp?
Nope.
Any friends?
Yeah, I had a friend named Rex Hunt that we both ended up going to electronic school together.
What are some of the things you remember about adapting to military life?
Just different routines. You couldn't just go and do what you wanted then.
What happened after basic training?
I went to electronic school at Treasure Island, San Francisco for 6 months. And the instructor there when we started said, when you finish this school, you'll know as much about electricity as someone with a bachelor's degree in electric,
So you were an electrician in the Navy,
an electronic technician.
electronic technician. Where did you go after San Francisco?
I was assigned to the ATF 86, the USS Mataco
Okay.
in San Diego. That's where all the ATFs, the fleet tugs, are homeported out of.
What does
Illinois.
ATF mean?
Auxiliary Fleet Tug. It's an ocean-going tug, 206 feet long and 38 feet wide.
All right. Does it have an aircraft?
No,
What's it like, that ship?
it's very small. It was a salvage ship. Mostly we did salvage work and tow targets. Did a lot of towing targets for other ships to shoot at.
And where were you deployed?
From San Diego, then we went to 6 months over Japan. The first time was Yokosuka, Japan, which is about 50 miles south of Tokyo on the Tokyo Bay.
Tell me about Japan.
Well, it was really a lot of difference between the culture I grew up in and over there. The people were friendly, though.
You get to meet the locals?
Some, not too many, because around the seaport, everybody's out to get the sailors' dollars.
Really? So you had to be careful?
Yeah.
Really?
Oh, they didn't steal nothing.
Yeah.
I only saw one time over there where a guy got his billfold lifted by a Japanese guy. I was working shore patrol one night, and this guy came in and says, somebody stole my billfold. And about 5 minutes later, before he got finished reporting it, here come the Japanese police in one car with some guy in the back, and they jerked him out, and another car pulled up with this man and a little girl about 12 years old. And they talked in Japanese and told him, this guy stole that guy's billfold. So they handed him the billfold, and they slapped that guy back in the cruiser, and away he went. And they wasn't very gentle about it either.
How much was a Navy paycheck back then? Do you remember?
Let's see. Time I got out as an E4, Petty Officer 3rd, $180 a month.
Did you get much leave? Could you go to Japan? Could you see stuff?
Most of the time we were too busy to get away from the ship very long or very far.
How long was that journey from America to Japan on the ship?
Takes 7 days from San Diego to Hawaii, and then about 2 weeks from there on over to Japan.
What did you do after Japan?
I came back to San Diego while I was in Japan on that first cruise. I took the test for E4. I'd had enough time and grade. And I passed the test, so when I got back to San Diego, just a day or so later, the word came in that I'd made Petty Officer Third. And then a couple of days after that, the personnel man stopped me and says, pack your sea bags, you're getting transferred. But you're not going to get any travel time or travel pay. I said, where am I going? That ship's tied up ahead of us. It's going to Japan next week, and you're going on it. So I went back to Japan.
What did you think about that?
Hey, it's one of those things.
What did your parents think when you were like, going back to Japan?
I don't know what they thought. But I went to then to the USS Malala, the ATF 8106. These fleet tugs were named after Indian tribes.
Okay.
So I spent the next year and a half on the Malala. Made another trip to that trip back to Japan, and then we came back and we towed targets and stuff out of San Diego for about 6 months.
What did you do in Japan on that second trip?
Same thing, tow targets.
How did you stay in touch with family and friends when you were
Write
deployed?
letters.
Right. How long did it take to get a letter back home?
Letters went pretty fast. Packages, they didn't go very fast. Because then if your parents sent you a package, it went by ship all the way across the ocean.
Right. What kind of packages did your parents send you?
The one time my mom sent a bunch of cookies and stuff. They were all moldy and yucky by the time they got there.
Yeah. Did you look forward to that, getting packages and letters?
Didn't letters, but didn't figure I was going to get any more. I told her what happened. I didn't get any more packages.
Right. What do you remember most about your deployment in Japan?
Every time we went over there, we went down to Hong Kong for 10 days, R&R. And that was
That was when it was part of Britain, Great Britain, right?
yeah, it was a British Crown colony.
Uh-huh.
And we always made sure we had some money to go shopping. You could get a suit made at the tailor shop down there, tailor made for you, for $25.
Right.
And they threw in a tie and a couple of white shirts.
So you're looking good when you came back to Scioto County.
And
Did you tell everybody, I got this suit in Hong Kong?
And some of the guys even said, hey, I want a pair of boots made. The guy at tailor shop jabbered something Chinese, and one of the guys out the door, and a little bit, here come a bootmaker back. Set your foot down on a piece of cardboard and draw around it. Come back the next day, you got a new pair of boots.
Wow, that's cool. So did they speak English or Chinese over? Yeah.
At the tailor shop, they spoke English real good, but they had a lot of Chinese employees that
What was the food like in Hong Kong?
It was regular food. There was a restaurant there, the Diamond Horseshoe, had one of the best steaks I ever had. One of the guys off the ship said, let's go over and we'll get us a steak. He'd been there before. Said, I know a place where we can get a steak cheap. So we went over and went into this place, ordered a filet mignon and all the trimmings, the salad, the potatoes.
You didn't get that on the ship?
Oh, we had stuff like that, but not like filet mignon.
Yeah.
So
In Hong Kong, they had a famous airport where the planes would land right in the middle of the city. It's not there anymore, but at that time it would have been. Do you remember that?
no.
Yeah.
But when the bill came, I looked at it, it was $9 now,
Okay.
I said, I thought you said this was cheap. He said, those are Hong Kong dollars. He said, it's only $1.50 American money. Give a guy $10 to tell him keep the change.
Yeah. Where did you go after Japan?
Went back, like I said, we spent about 6 months in San Diego towing targets, and then we got assigned to be the station ship at Adak, Alaska, out in the Aleutians.
Oh, wow.
So I spent the winter out there.
Oh, that's amazing. Tell me about Alaska.
A lot of snow, a lot of wind. And didn't get daylight till about 10 o'clock in the morning, and then it got dark about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And there wasn't anything out there to save lots of money because there wasn't any place to spend it. You could go up to the base, but they didn't have anything there much more than what we had on the ship. They had a movie every night on the ship. Whether we were in port or at sea, we still had a movie every night. And
What kind of movies did they show?
all kinds. They just, before we'd leave, the guy one of the electricians who ran the movie projector would go over to the base and come back with a load of films. And then if we were working with another ship at sea or anything, they'd trade films back and forth.
Did they have a theater on the ship?
No, just set up a movie projector and had a screen.
Outside?
In good weather. Set it up on the fantail.
Right.
That was the biggest area clear on the ship.
How long were you in Alaska?
6 months.
Did you ever see the Northern Lights?
No.
How much time did you get outside when you were on the ship?
Very little.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It was cold.
Yeah.
And if you went up to the base, the only way to get up there was walk up through they plowed a road from the dock up to the base, and the snow was piled up 5 foot high on each side. And that's all there was to see was snow, and after a while you get tired of going up there. They had a ski lodge somewhere up on the mountain behind the base, but we wasn't allowed to go up there because the captain said we got to be able to get underway within a half hour. And one time there was a ship started breaking up. A civilian freighter had developed a crack, and seawater was getting into a load of barley. So they were afraid it was going to split in two. So we went out a couple of days and escorted them into the harbor, and then our divers went down and patched the crack, and then they went on to Japan.
Right. How was Japan and Alaska? How were those deployments different from each other?
Things to do in Japan: go to town, talk to people. Alaska, you saw the guys on the ship, and that's about it.
How did you pass the time in Alaska?
Movies,
Yeah.
sat around and talk.
Mm-hmm. Where did you go after Alaska?
Got back to San Diego, and then a few days later, personnel man says, pack your sea bag. You're getting transferred, but you get travel pay and travel time this time. I said, where am I going? He said, Long Beach.
Right.
There's a freighter up there heading for Japan that needs an electronic technician. You're it. So I got transferred up to Long Beach, California, and got on the USS Ashtabula, AO 51. And I was on it till up to I got discharged.
Mm-hmm. Right. You went back to Japan?
Back to Japan, operated all out of the South Pacific, back over to Hong Kong again. It was on for R&R. And there was one officer on there that later became very famous,
Oh,
John McCain.
no way.
Yep,
Did you meet him?
yeah,
Tell me
he's not,
about John McCain.
huh? He was a real nice guy. He was lieutenant then. And I wondered when I met him what someone with a submariner's dolphins and pilot wings was doing on a tanker. So, but later I found out his father was the admiral in charge of all the submarines in the Pacific Fleet. That's why he had the dolphins. And then he was a pilot, so he later was transferred over to a aircraft carrier and worked out of Vietnam there.
Yeah. Did you ever have any conversations with him or talk
Oh
to him?
yeah,
Yeah?
he's a real nice guy to talk to.
Yeah?
He would come back, sit down and talk to us. Most of the other officers wouldn't have nothing to say to us guys except give orders, but John was a real nice guy to talk to.
Yeah. So, how did you feel? How long were you in the military total?
4 years,
Right. When did you get out? Do you remember the year?
1960,
Right.
February 30th, or 29th, 1960.
How did it feel coming home?
A little strange, really.
Right. How did you adjust to civilian life?
Very easily. Now,
Did you?
I had thought about staying in, but that last ship I was on, I had an officer that just couldn't get along with. I was up for take the test for E5, and he and I didn't get along, so he conveniently forgot to order the test for me.
Really?
Yep.
Was that a big disappointment?
Yeah, I could have got be a second-class petty officer with that one, and then if I'd have shipped over, I'd have made chief on the next tour. Because my rate was wide open. If you could pass the test, you went up.
How old were you when you got out of the military?
I was 19 when I joined, and so 4 years later, I was 23.
So, is there anybody that you remember fondly? Like a friend?
Yeah, I
Friendship?
had a friend on that last ship, the Ashtabula, named Bob Muntz. He was a cook, and his rate was pretty much full up in the top end of guys that had been in a long time. And I remember he was a third class petty officer, and he took the test for second class, and he was one of the two people that took that test that got high enough score to advance in the whole Pacific Fleet.
Did you keep in touch?
For a while. Then he got married. He married a school teacher there in Long Beach. And the last I heard from him, he was had left Long Beach and went up to living up in Idaho.
So what were some fun things you and your friends did together while you were deployed? I want to hear about life on the ship.
Well, we went sightseeing a little bit around town, and most of the time it was just right close to the seaport there, things like that. I remember one time a couple of guys and I hired a taxi and just went out and rode around through the countryside.
Where was that?
Over in Sasebo. Saw the people out there working in their rice paddies, farming.
How did they react, like out in the country?
They just ignored us. Because they were busy. Japanese are very industrious people.
So did any of your military friends play pranks on each other?
Sometimes. I remember new guys that come on board ship, they maybe send him after, go get me about 10 feet of lubber line. Only as if you didn't know what a lubber line was, you go looking for a rope or something. The lubber line is a little mark on the front of the compass that you steer by.
So they would pretend to know and...
Yeah, having gone all over the ship looking for a lubber line.
So what were your few months out of the service like when you left? Where did you go? How did you feel?
Well, I was back here started hunting for a job. And I went to one place up in Columbus. They was looking for somebody to work in electronics. I went in, the guy said, "Oh, here, I'll give you some tests, see how you do." I took tests there for about 2 hours. He'd bring something out and says, "If this goes wrong with this piece of equipment, where would you find the trouble?" And I'd go through the wiring diagrams till I figured out what was. He'd take that one back and bring another one out. I did that for about 2 or 3 hours, and he came out and says, "You did real good on these tests. How much college do you have?" I said, "I don't have any." "Oh, I can't hire you."
Oh.
"I want to hire you, but I can't hire you. You don't have college."
What company was that?
I don't even remember, but it made quality control equipment, and said if we have any trouble with the people who can't fix it, we'd send our technician over there. "I'd like to hire you," but said, "You did good on the test, but we don't hire people without college."
So what did you do after that?
I ended up doing drywall and sheetrocking.
Oh. Did you miss electronics?
Not that much.
Right. How did you learn to do drywall and sheetrock?
I worked with Elmer Faulkner.
Right. Where was he?
He lives over on Gephardt Road, and he does a lot of drywalling around for people.
And how long did you work with him?
Oh, a couple of years, 4 or 5 years really.
And then after that, what did you do?
The GI Bill came out and picked up for the guys between the Korea and Vietnam War, which was me. And I went to college,
Oh, okay.
became a teacher.
Oh, where'd you go to college?
I graduated from Rio with a bachelor's degree, and then later went to Xavier and got my master's.
All right. When did you graduate from Rio Grande?
1970,
All right. What was your subject? What was your bachelor's in?
elementary education.
Right. Where did you teach?
Ernest, I taught 3 years at Rubyville in Clay Township, and then I got transferred over to Bloom Vernon, and I spent the next 25 years there.
Right. And was that a rewarding career for you? What do you think about teaching?
I loved it.
Yeah.
I loved it. I hated to quit.
Yeah. When did you retire?
98.
Good. So, do you have any advice for anyone coming out of the military, like how to transition to civilian life?
No, it's all different now.
Yeah. How do you think it's different?
We've got a lot of different opportunities now that we didn't have when I think your brother knows that.
What kind of opportunities do you think they have now that they didn't back then?
Well, they got education better.
Right. How did the time in the military affect you? Change you?
Made me more independent.
Did you ever miss it?
No,
What are you glad to have left behind in the military?
all that stupid regulations.
Did you join the reserves when you got out?
No, I was in the reserve before I went in, so I joined the reserve while I was still in the high school.
Right. Did you ever join any veterans organizations?
Nope.
No. What has been difficult to communicate to family and friends about your military service? There are people that just don't understand, maybe, who haven't been in the military.
Now, I don't know. I don't have any trouble.
What do you want others to know about your military service? Do you have any other stories for us?
Well, I think if a person wants to go see a different part of the world, that's a good way to do it.
If somebody wanted to join now, what would you tell them? What advice would you give them?
It can be a rewarding career if you like it. Some people take to it, some don't.
All right, so is there anything else? Any other stories or
No,
things you would like to say? Anything for posterity, for Todd, for future citizens watching this?
no.
All right.
You have to make up your own mind.
Good. All right, thanks a lot for your time.
Thanks for your time, Marvin. Thanks for your service.
Appreciate it.